This is Bengals Central Podcast, keeping you up to date on all the Bengals news. Brought to you by ProFootballCentral.com. And now, here are your hosts, Sean O'Donnell and Chris Rowling.
To the Bengals Central Podcast, found exclusively on the Pro Football Central Radio Network and brought to you by Onnit.com, delivering everything you need to thrive. I'm your host, Sean O'Donnell, and with me, as always, my co-host, Chris Rowling. And before we get into everything today, I just wanted to remind everyone that Bengals Central now has official T-shirts. We do. They feature our logo that you are also familiar with. They look fantastic, and we can't wait to get them out there to everybody, and you'll get information on that very soon. We would love to thank Big Frog Custom T-shirts in Cincinnati, Ohio, for hooking us up. You can find them on the web at bigfrog.com/Cincinnati. And like I said, we'll keep you all updated on when the shirts arrive, how you can get one. We're going to be throwing together some interesting contests and everything. We're going to have a lot of fun with these. So let's get on to the show. Chris, we have some big Bengals news that has happened, and we also have a couple of great guests coming up.
That's right, Sean. It's believe it or not, it's been a big news week without training camps even kicking off. We're going to talk about the final contract signing of a big-name Bengals rookie, and also we're going to detail a major contract that was struck with a very crucial part of the defensive line. We also have two very special guests on the show this week, in cornerback Brandon Ghee and wide receiver Roy Roundtree. Be sure to stick around, and let's kick it right into the news. That aforementioned big-name rookie we were talking about was Notre Dame tight end and first-round draft pick Tyler Eifert. The Bengals announced Tuesday that he has agreed to his rookie deal, signed it, it's done, and now all 10 rookies are under contract before training camp. Great news, business as usual. We knew the deal was going to get done. Marvin Lewis in interviews was confident the deal was going to get done. No reason for it to not get done with the new collective bargaining agreement. Sean, anything to add about the Eifert signing?
It's great that Eifert is now under contract. The Bengals have all 10 rookies locked up before training camp begins, which is huge because these rookies they're going to need every single day that they can get in training camp. It's a crucial first couple of days as well as they begin to gel with the rest of the team and focus on learning the playbook and really getting some reps in pads. As far as Eifert's contract goes, it's right along the lines of the new rookie wage scale from the most recent CBA. So it's obviously a 4-year deal. Eifert will earn about $8.25 million overall, which is included with a $4.3 million signing bonus. That will get distributed evenly through the 4 years of the contract. His cap number this year will be about $1.5 million. So he's making exactly what he should be making in terms of the rookie wage scale. So now let's go to a slightly larger contract here with veteran defensive end Carlos Dunlap, who we were lucky enough to have on the show not too long ago. This deal kind of came out of nowhere. And as far as I was concerned, all of the focus seemed to be kind of around Michael Johnson and the franchise tag because it was coming down to the deadline this week. But Dunlap, he got a 6-year, $40 million deal, the Cincinnati Bengals. And, I think it was a great move that the Bengals lock up Dunlap. He has proven to be a very disruptive force on the defensive line. Part of the reason why the Bengals defensive line is so good is because of how many great players they have on that line. I think it was very smart of them to wrap up Dunlap before his rookie contract expires. Also, it's a front-loaded deal, which normally doesn't take place too often in the NFL. Normally, these types of contracts are backloaded. But the reason why this is such a smart move to give Dunlap a lot of money up front is because this frees up the Bengals to be able to give contract extensions, big contract extensions, I should say, that are kind of more backloaded to guys like A.J. Green and Geno Atkins. So I think this is a very smart signing by the Bengals and Carlos Dunlap. Chris, what was your reaction to the Carlos Dunlap signing?
Yeah, the writing on the wall, it was kind of there for this one. We've talked about it in the past. If you tuned into the show, we've said consistently that Carlos Dunlap was going to be the guy getting an extension before anyone else. Personally, I didn't think it was going to happen this offseason. I'm used to, 10 or more years of Cincinnati procrastinating to the very last minute, even when it comes to kickers. So it kind of came out of left field, which is nice. Like you said, $40 million, very front-loaded. It means potentially there's a little more wiggle room for a Michael Johnson deal, but I still can't see it with how much money he's going to be able to kind of drive up on the open market when he plays teams against each other. Geno Atkins leaves plenty of room to get him back under contract now that Dunlap's eaten up a lot of cap space this year instead of in the future years. It also leaves more wiggle room for guys like Andy Dalton and A.J. Green. So, smart decision. You talk about a guy with potentially the most untapped potential we have yet to see on the field. It's Carlos Dunlap, and it's a smart move. 6 years, we're going to see him. He's going to be in his prime during the entire course of his time in Cincinnati, potentially getting better and better and better. Also low risk in case they have to, for whatever reason, cut ties. The biggest part of the payments is out of the way up front. So that's all I got. Great move.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a fantastic move on the Bengals' part and on Carlos Dunlap's part. And obviously, as Bengals fans, we hope it works out for everybody involved. So, speaking of that stout defense that the Cincinnati Bengals currently owns, let's maybe have a chat with somebody who plans to be maybe a big part of that this year, because it appears we have our first interview of the show ready to go.
Football fans, check out the official T-shirt apparel shop for BengalsCentral Check out BigFrog.com/Cincinnati. That's BigFrog.com/Cincinnati. Big Frog offers 24-hour turnaround and no minimums. At Big Frog, you think it, we ink it. Also visit them at their fabulous store over at Anderson Town Center, 7426 Beachmont Avenue, Cincinnati, Ohio, 45255. Who day?
We are very excited to announce that joining us right now on Bengals Central, we have Cincinnati Bengals cornerback Brandon Ghee. Brandon, thank you very much for joining us today. How you doing, man?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. We're really excited to have you here. Glad to hear that you're doing good, man. We want to get into training camp and hard knocks and all that good stuff that's going to be coming around the corner. But first, I was talking to Brian, CEO of Pro Football Central, and he was letting me know that you have some kind of a foundation that you're kind of getting underway. Can you give us a little details about that?
I'm just starting a foundation. I'm a military brat. My dad served in the military for 25 years. And I'm just starting. It's similar to Wounded Warriors, but I think it's a little bit more interaction. Wounded Warriors, they give back. I do some activities, but I'm looking to do a little bit more. First I want to start in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and just give back to my community, all the, military kids and the soldiers, and get families together and stuff like that.
That's great to hear, Brandon. It's always great to hear when professional players are giving back to the community and especially to the military. Let's hop right into the football talk now. Training camp is just around the corner, obviously. Fans get very excited for this time of year. You specifically are entering your fourth season in the NFL. What is this time of year like for you?
I think every year in the NFL is a big year. Of course, this is my contract year, so it's huge. I'm just trying to get some more playing time, make my team better, and just improve as a player and hopefully get another contract with Cincinnati.
Very cool, man. Yeah, it's kind of funny the timing here. As you mentioned, you're in a contract year. This being the fourth year out of your rookie deal. You came into the NFL in 2010, and you kind of just missed out on the last time the Bengals were on Hard Knocks by a season. Well, now the Bengals are going to be making their second appearance on Hard Knocks this year, and this year, obviously you're healthy again, and you're looking to contribute in that defensive secondary, and everything's going to kind of be on display out there through the cameras of the Hard Knocks. So, what are your thoughts about going through training camp and being on that show this year?
Honestly, I don't know what to expect. I watched it when they had Chad on there. It was my first time ever watching Hard Knocks, and that's how I actually learned about Cincinnati. Actually, being on there, I don't know what to expect. I think I'm going to try to ignore it a little bit, just play my best out there. Don't try to be distracted too much, but it's a great opportunity to show my talents and for Cincinnati to show their talents.
Hey, we're looking forward to seeing you on there, Brandon. We've actually heard over the past couple of years that you've been very impressive in off-season workouts and training camps. It's been well documented, though. Unfortunately, you've had your injury issues. You had the wrist injury. What have you done extra this off-season to help keep yourself healthy? How will this year be different for you in terms of preparation?
Last year I prepared real well. I had a great camp, and it was just a freak accident. I fell on my wrist the wrong way going up for a ball, and I ended up dislocating everything. Things happen. It's football. And this year I pretty much did the same thing, prepared the same way, and you just got to stay healthy. Just hopefully nothing crazy happens. I don't jump up and fall on the ankle or tear ACL, knock on wood, or anything like that. Just hope for the best and just keep playing how I've been playing.
That's great, man. And speaking of how you've been playing, as Chris just mentioned, we hear countless reports coming from some of the Bengals beat writers out of last year and this year again, either last year at a training camp or this year during OTAs, about how you've really kind of stole a lot of the spotlight out there at the quarterback position, and we keep hearing such high praise for you. So I guess my question is, obviously you've been working with a lot of very talented cornerbacks in Cincinnati, namely Leon Hall, Adam Jones, Terrence Newman this past year. How have those veterans kind of helped your game and mold you into a better cornerback since you came into the NFL?
I think any cornerback on the NFL will be a hard transition. I don't care if you're the first round or last pick, or first pick or last pick. It'll be a hard transition. We got a lot of veterans on the team. We had Nate Clemens, who taught me a lot. Terrence Newman, Adam, Leon. Even Jonathan Joseph, when I first got there, taught me a lot how to play. And you just try to take a little bit of advice from each one. Just watch how they play and watch how they move. And I think the biggest thing is watch how they carry themselves on and off the field. You learned a lot through Terrence. He practiced hard almost every practice. He knows how to take care of his body, and I just try to take little things from him, ice tub, massage, or whatever it is. And it transitions for me last year, but I got hurt, and now I'm doing the same this year. And they all of them taught me a lot of different ways, and it's been good.
Let's flip that on its head now, Brandon. You've been around for a few years. Are you taking those things that you've learned from guys like Leon Hall and Jonathan Joseph, and are you applying them in sort of a leadership role with some of the younger guys on the roster now?
I try to lead by example. I'm not one of those guys that tell you what to do. We're all grown men out there, and especially during camp, we're all competing against each other. I just hope you do the best, I do the best, and the best man wins. I just go hard every practice, try to be in the film room as much as I can, and like I said, we got enough veterans on the team. I don't need to be a leader. like I said, we got Terrence Newman, Adam, Leon. We got the older group. Not that many young corners on the team. We got, Drake Kirkpatrick, you got Sean Prater, but that's about it.
I got you, and that makes a lot of sense, though, because you got the veterans that have been around for a while, kind of can show the guys the ropes. But I guess leading by example is probably one of the best ways to conduct yourself throughout off-season workouts, training camp, et cetera. We hear it time and time again from the guys on the Bengals roster about there's a lot of guys out there who are kind of taking that leadership role just kind of but by way of example rather than verbally, and that's a great way to come about it, about the younger guys. And speaking of the younger guys, you've been up close and personal now during OTAs with the new rookies on the offensive side that the Bengals have brought in. Giovanni Bernard, you got Tyler Eifert out there, a couple of undrafted guys in Roy Roundtree, Tyro Gord, Kobe Hamilton. And basically, out of all of those guys, who's really been standing out a lot to you from somebody's perspective in the defensive secondary?
I gotta say, from my experience, I say Giovanni is. He got quick feet, he's a good runner, he can catch the ball out the backfield. He's really impressed me. And of course, Tyler from Notre Dame, tight end, he's really impressed me too. But see, when you come as a first-round perspective, we expect that. We knew he was going to be good, but like I said, Giovanni from North Carolina has probably impressed me the most.
That's great to hear, man. We're, all these Bengals fans are looking forward to seeing their new rookies as well as you older guys that are still trying to make it. Let's take a second and put the spotlight back on yourself here. Outside of the obvious, just doing everything you can to stay healthy and get on the field, are there any other personal goals you have set for yourself for the 2013 season?
Personal goal is just try to get in the starting lineup. A lot of people talk to me about, just playing time and just trying to contribute. I'm trying to start. I mean, if I just trying to do the best I can to contribute, make the team better. But of course, my goal is to start and just play more and more. Like I said, it's a competitive sport. I'm trying to do the best I can. If I'm doing the best I can, next person is going to be better. So that's my goal, is getting the starting lineup and just play more. I mean, that's what it's all about.
That's great, man. Yeah, we've heard, that obviously you've got a lot to offer. You've been impressing the coaching staff, teammates, fans, pundits, so we're really looking forward to watching you in training camp this year on Hard Knocks, and we have every bit of faith that you could potentially go ahead and crack that starting lineup. So love that you have that goal going on for yourself. And Brandon, I really want to thank you for talking with us today about training camp and about your goals, and taking the time out of your schedule to join us here. You mentioned your foundation that you've got going on earlier. Also, we know yourself on Twitter. Give yourself some plugs here. Let people know where they can find you and the things that you're doing.
Oh, it's at BGBGAGE on Twitter, and it's at BGAGE21 on Instagram. Like I said, my foundation is in the works. Will definitely be finished by the end of the season. And that's about it. I thank y'all for having me on the show.
Hey, thanks a lot for joining us, Brandon. We'd love to have you back to kind of check in on your progress at some time. So yeah, you're more than welcome to join us again in the future.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And that was Brandon Ghee, up-and-coming quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals, looking to crack the starting lineup. We're very excited to see what he can do this season now that he's healthy and ready to go. Wish him the best of luck in 2013. Chris, I'm really looking forward to Brandon Ghee this year during training camp. We've had such kind of high expectations of him over the past couple of years because, every year it really seems like we're hearing out of OTAs or we're hearing out of training camp, he's taking, these great reps and he's terrific in coverage, and the coaching staff is so impressed with him, and, he looks fantastic. And then, something seems to happen where, like last year with the wrist injury he had and just, was out for the season because of it. This year we're already hearing the same things. We were hearing from OTAs that he looks fantastic again. And, I really hope he can stay healthy because I really think that he could be really a hidden gem for the Bengals. It's his fourth year this year, and he hasn't had anything to show for it so far. And, I'm hoping 2013 can be the year where he can kind of break into some playing time and he can show the Bengals what he's capable of doing, maybe for them in the long run. What's your thoughts on Brandon Ghee coming up this year, Chris?
First of all, it's great to hear that his career is back on track after all these various injuries he suffered since entering the league. Last year he had that run-in with the wrist injury that almost potentially ended his career because of an infection. It's great to hear that he's back even practicing and pursuing the dream. Sounds dedicated, ready to go, team guy, if not a little ultra-competitive, which is what you want from folks in these kind of positions. Like you were saying, we've heard every offseason how outstanding he has looked in workouts. Unfortunately, the body has just not held up. So potentially, hopefully this is the year. We'll see. But right now, it's just great to hear that he's doing what he needs to do and he's back on the right track. Switching from the defensive side of things, let's go ahead and flip that on its head and talk about the offensive side of the ball here, because it appears we have our next guest on the line.
We would like to welcome former Michigan wide receiver and current Cincinnati Bengals rookie Roy Roundtree with us right now on Bengals Central. Roy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Roy, I know this is a real exciting time for you. You grew up in Dayton, Ohio. You got picked up by the Bengals. What's it like to be able to play for an NFL team that is so close to home?
Oh, man, it's a dream come true. You know, watching them on TV and, you know, playing against the Steelers and the Ravens and, you know, just being organized with, you know, the Bengals organization, you know, it's a dream come true.
That's great, man. I mean, it seems like you've got yourself in quite a nice situation right now. And you know, I've been reading since the draft here that you've received quite a great deal of attention from the NFL around the time of the draft, and that included a personal text message actually from Ravens head coach John Harbaugh. What was that whole process like for you around that time?
I'll say it probably was the longest process of my life. just going into draft week, you know, a lot of coaches, you know, would text me or give me a call, and you know, you just always was on you know, on the waiting list because you never knew what team was going to pick you up. So, you know, it's basically a waiting game. But you know, once draft day came, you know, I had family over, and you know, I just shot around in the backyard, playing basketball, and you know, it was just a long process, I'll say.
Oh, we're happy it worked out for you, man. Let's backtrack for just a second here. You had an outstanding career at Michigan. You finished 6th in career catches and yards. All 5 players in front of you ended up playing in the NFL. What have you been working on this offseason to ensure that you keep that trend alive?
Just my endurance, my agility, route running, getting off the damn press. You know, I've been doing a lot since, you know, after minicamp and what I've learned in minicamp, and, you know, also studying the playbook. Like I said, I write everything down that Coach says, and, you know, Coach Urban, he's a great coach, and, you know, every day we was in the room, I wrote down every play so I could study it. You know, so by the time camp comes around, you know, I'll be running full speed and not up there like, you know, rookie minicamp don't really know, like, what to do because, you know, it's a new system. But now that I feel like I adjusted and, you know, I've been running routes and everything. So I feel like that's the biggest thing that I really, really worked on.
Yeah, that's great. It sounds like you're doing all the right things as you're making your entrance into the NFL, Roy. And, you know, coming in the NFL as an undrafted rookie obviously requires, you know, some hard work, you know, to move up the ranks and, you know, to get on the roster, get some playing time. And you found yourself in kind of a decent situation here by joining up on the Cincinnati Bengals, a team that already has a wide receiver who's considered one of the best in the league in A.J. Green. What have you been able to learn or take away from what he does during OTAs and minicamp so far?
You know, I was really, really impressed, you know, of A.J. He's a quiet guy, but he comes every day to work, and, you know, he makes plays, and you know, that's how I consider myself. I want to make big plays. And, you know, him being the guy that the deep balls to stretch the field, the go routes, you know, he's able to do that because, you know, he's a physical wide receiver and he knows to get the ball. And that's the biggest thing, you know, Coach Burke said, go make a play. Go separate yourself today. So, you know, we got a great mind. We got a great wide receiver core. You know, every guy got there competing and, you know, with him, you know, it's time to try.
You know, Roy, that's great to hear.
Wait.
We realize you guys are... Hello?
Yeah, hold on. He dropped.
Okay.
Yeah, he dropped. So call us back. I'm just going to ask him to repeat his last answer when he calls back because he just dropped out. Yeah, I was hearing the same thing. He was just breaking up. He must have bad reception because that's the second time he's dropped. So I'll just let him call back in. I'll just conference him back in. And,
okay.
Yeah.
It'll still record all that?
I'm still recording actually right now. I'm going to bring him back in. Hey, Roy, you there?
Yep.
Hey, sorry, yeah, I dropped out of the the convo there. I got the recorder still running, so we'll just get right back into it. If you don't mind, man, you started to break up during the last answer, which was after what you've been able to learn from AJ Green. If you wouldn't mind just kind of starting just to repeat where that answer there, and then I'll cut it out and we'll clean it up before we print this thing.
Well, the thing with AJ is, he's a quiet guy, but also he's a great leader for the wide receivers. Him being so young, you wouldn't expect that from guys like that. But, being a two-time Pro Bowler, you have no choice but to respect his game. And, he comes to work every day, and, it just shows we want to be the best wide receiver core in the NFL. And I feel like we can do that with hard work and dedication. And, he's one of them guys that pushes.
Speaking of the other wide receivers on the roster, man, we realize you guys are all in a pretty stiff competition for a very limited number of roster spots. But, what has the camaraderie been like between you and the rest of the receivers during OTAs and minicamp so far?
Yeah, I mean, we all came to compete every day. We was always helping each other because, you don't want no one on the field lost and don't know what to do. So, that was the biggest thing that I felt comfortable with, us rookies being out there with the veterans. And, we had help because, they didn't want to see us mess up. So, I mean, it was a great time. And, it's great guys on this team. And that's what I, learned most so far.
That's great, man. It's good to hear that even though everyone's in a stiff competition here, that everyone's kind of getting along nice and everyone's helping each other out. It's a great thing to hear. If you're a fan of the Cincinnati Bengals, I'm sure our listeners are going to be really happy to hear that. And speaking of being in front of the fans, as you know, HBO's Hard Knocks will be taking place during the Bengals training camp this season. So, what's that to you as far as, does it put any added pressure on you to perform, being in that national spotlight as you, go forward and try to make this team?
It's funny, everybody think I'll be under pressure, but I play it at me. I mean, it's just practice. You just got to look at it as, just scouts being at practice every day with cameras. So, you know what you got to do. I don't see no pressure at all. I'm just going to go in there and take care of business and, just do what I do best. It's also, just have fun. So, my life to get me what I was at and, just make plays.
That's great to hear, man. It's a good thing you had that outstanding experience under the spotlights at Michigan. We got one more question for you. And, it pertains to your aforementioned battle with other receivers on the roster. What do you feel are your best qualities that you bring to the Bengals that will help you make that final roster?
Best qualities, smart. I can play either inside or outside. On special teams. I'm tough. And, that's all.
Hey, Roy, I'm sorry, man. You're breaking up during that last answer right there. If I can hear you any better here, I'll have you repeat it. Can you hear me all right?
Yep, can you hear me?
You're coming in a little bit better now. Sorry, it must be some bad reception there. Let's see. Let me see if I can hear you now.
Hello?
Yeah, that's good right there. Yeah, I can hear you. I'm sorry. Can you just go at that last question one more time?
I said, what's going to separate me from other receivers is that, I'm physical, smart, read the defense on the run. I want to make plays. I'm capable of making big plays. I always say goals to make big plays. I like blocking. I could be on special teams. I could be inside or outside. So, I just want to do it all. Whatever I can do to help, the team, also make the team. So, I understand it's a business and everything, but I'm giving my all.
Very cool, man. That's a perfect answer there. It sounds like, you're really interested in making the team better, and you're a jack of all trades. I've read the same things about you, and I've seen your film from Michigan, and you really don't mind blocking, and you can contribute in so many different ways, and I think that's going to be a great quality to have as you get into the NFL. Roy, we really want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to come on the show and talk with us. Let our listeners know, where they can find you on the internet, give you a follow on Twitter, anything like that.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I'll be in contact with you guys. I'll take care. Thanks for having me.
All right, thanks for coming on the show, Roy. And you can find Roy Roundtree here, rookie wide receiver, Cincinnati Bengals, on Twitter. And Roy, your Twitter handle is WR Treasy on Twitter. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
All right, good stuff. Everybody be sure to give Roy Roundtree a follow, and we wish you the best of luck during training camp and to your continuing success in the NFL. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
That was Roy Roundtree. Great to hear from him. Star out of Michigan, as many Ohio fans are probably very, very aware of. He definitely has an uphill battle when it comes to making the roster and making a major impact in his rookie season, because the organization has done such an outstanding job of building up this deep receiving core, but Roundtree is just another example of that. He has big play potential to catch the coach's eyes during training camp, and, I think there's a good chance he could do that. Sean, what are your thoughts on Roundtree?
I'm a big fan of Roy Roundtree. I think he's a guy that has a lot to offer as a wide receiver. You mentioned the big playability. He even said in the interview he's willing to work on special teams. He sounds very driven, and he sounds like he wants to do everything he can to try to help the team, which is great. As far as especially being an undrafted rookie free agent coming into the Cincinnati Bengals, you obviously want to try to help in all phases, and I think Roundtree can do that. He's an athletic guy, and I think he's trustworthy as a wide receiver. We could see that in how Michigan used him throughout his career there. I mean, I'm sure we all remember the 2011 last-second touchdown grab against Notre Dame that led Michigan to the win. That was Roy Roundtree. He's a guy who's been in the spotlight in clutch situations like that, and he's come away victorious. So I think Roundtree's a great guy that can develop and possibly contribute down the line for the Bengals. And as you said, Chris, it's a very deep wide receiving core right now. He has an uphill battle to try to make the roster, but he has enough talent that I think he really could be a dark horse as we watch him during training camp this year. And luckily, we're going to get to see it all on Hard Knocks. So can't wait for that. So now it happens to be time for the triumphant return, should I say, of our mailbag segment. This is where all of you get to ask us any question you desire via Twitter. And we are going to spontaneously answer them on the show. So let's see what you guys have in store for us this week and get started here with the first question from Jerry. And you can find Jerry on Twitter at Jerry, that's with a J, 5496. And Jerry asks, which I anticipated a lot of Bengals fans would be asking for this show, did the Bengals overpay for the Dunlap deal? And Jerry, well, I don't think that they did at all. In fact, I think that Dunlap actually has the ability to warrant more money in this type of a long-term deal. Especially, and I think one of the reasons that the Bengals got this done before the season starts is because I think they realize the potential that Carlos Dunlap brings. I don't think he's really scratched the surface of his talent yet, and I think that he might even be poised for a breakout year, especially when you look at the defensive line. Obviously, everybody has to account for Geno Atkins on every single play. Now Michael Johnson's become a household name. They're going to have to focus attention over there. This could free up Carlos Dunlap a lot this year, and we could actually see a big-time year coming from him. And if the Bengals were to wait until after the season for any kind of a contract extension with Dunlap, and he does happen to put up these big numbers that I'm kind of predicting that he will, they would have had to fork out over a whole lot more money to Mr. Dunlap. So I think the deal was struck at the right time, and I think it was for the right amount of money. I think it was a great move for both parties. Chris, what's your thoughts on the Dunlap deal?
No, there's no overpayment here. You have to understand what the Bengals are paying for with this deal, which is an investment in future potential over the course of the next 6 years. And they're also investing in having the peace of mind, knowing that they're going to have cap space in future years to extend guys like Geno Atkins, A.J. Green, Andy Dalton. Like Sean touched on, we have yet to see, I'm of the same mindset, we have yet to see the best of Dunlap. I think the Bengals coaching staff recognizes that there's no overpayment here, and there's a chance that he could outplay this contract, which could lead to a holdout down the line. But as of right now, smart investment. It's hard to overpay when you had as much cap room sitting around as this organization did this year anyway, and just dead money, to the point where they even carried over $10 million to next year, I think was the number. So I have no overpayment here. Smart move, good investment. Unless it doesn't pan out, there's that chance. But again, there's so much extra money floating around. It's probably the safest investment they could have made at this point. We'll move right on to that into the next question that also concerns the defensive line. This one comes from Adam Burns. You can find him at AdamJohnB on Twitter, and he wants to know, why tie up Carlos Dunlap when Geno Atkins and Michael Johnson are better players that could benefit the team more? Easy answer to this question. Right now, Dunlap was, as we just touched on, the safe investment. Geno Atkins is going to potentially cost the team the highest defensive contract in NFL history if they base it on Haloti Ngata's of the Baltimore Ravens. The best case thing they could have done with Geno Atkins is wait until next offseason to lock up a deal based on his performance, based on future performance, and if it comes down to it, hit him with the franchise tag. Obviously not preferable, but that's always an option to keep him in Cincinnati while the two sides can work out a deal. Michael Johnson, he's put up better statistics, but there's also an argument that we may have seen the best he has to offer. You have to remember he got hit with the franchise tag. He's already making $11 million. The price he is going to command over the next 5 or 6 years is going to be something Cincinnati may not be comfortable paying, because knowing that they have to lock up guys like Geno Atkins and A.J. Green, the cap space to keep all of these guys around may hurt other positions on the roster. Johnson may be better right now than Dunlap, but long-term potential, I think the investment, the smart investment was in Dunlap. Johnson's here another year. We'll see how it plays out on the free agent market, but there's a reason he didn't get a long-term deal and instead got hit with the franchise tag. Geno's deal is going to get done. He's going to get tied up, and the Dunlap deal is actually a catalyst to that. So, Sean, your take on this question?
Yeah, you pretty much nailed it right there, Chris. And Dunlap, yeah, he's the safe bet right now as far as what he brings to the defensive line, because the other guys, I mean, obviously Geno Atkins, a deal's going to get done there one way or another. That's happening. They front-loaded this Carlos Dunlap deal because they wanted to make sure they had enough cap space left to kind of load the back end of a very long Geno Atkins deal. So those two deals are kind of working hand in hand. And as far as tying up Carlos Dunlap instead of Michael Johnson, well, here's the thing, it's kind of, I guess, a thing that, Michael Johnson had a great year in 2012, a breakout season, and he's viewed as the better defensive end. But if you look at these guys and what they've done statistically, that might not actually be the case. Carlos Dunlap has had 20 sacks in 3 seasons in the league. Michael Johnson has had 23 sacks in 4 seasons in the league. So Carlos Dunlap actually has a higher sack per year average than Michael Johnson has over his NFL career so far. So if you look at it that way, the Bengals might have actually already tied up the better defensive end, especially because, as we mentioned before, Carlos Dunlap really hasn't even scratched the surface of his true potential yet, whereas Michael Johnson, we may have seen the best of what he has to offer in 2012. So I think it was a great idea to tie up Dunlap. They're going to get a deal with Geno Atkins done one way or another. It's going to happen. Unfortunately, Michael Johnson, he'll probably end up being a cap casualty in this situation, and this will probably be the last year that he is with the Bengals because of all of the big names that the Bengals must re-sign, which is actually a great thing because that means they're really doing it right in the draft. And, and speaking of the draft, that's why they brought in Marcus Hunt, because they were ready for this situation. So let's move on and stick with the defensive line, because this is going to be a hot topic, I guess, for this week with this recent signing. And this question is from Jerry again. And Jerry asks us what the odds are that Geno Atkins gets a deal done before the season. I highly doubt that Geno gets a deal done with the Bengals anytime soon. I think that they've been concentrating very heavily on the deal that they just got done with Carlos Dunlap, and they were also negotiating with Michael Johnson at the same time to see if they could maybe get some kind of a long-term deal locked up before before he was locked into the franchise tag for the season. They will, I guarantee, be working on a contract with Geno Atkins, with Geno Atkins' agent over the course of the season, and I very much expect them to get a long-term deal done with Geno Atkins before his contract expires. However, I think the deal is going to be so lucrative that it's not going to be something that gets done quickly, especially when you consider that you're dealing with the Bengals front office. So, yeah, I think the Geno deal gets done, but not before this season. Chris, what do you think about that?
Let me preface my answer by saying there was no way I was going to be able to predict the Carlos Dunlap deal would get done this offseason. Way out of left field. Didn't see that coming. Now that I have my safety net down, let me say that there is 0% chance this deal gets done before the season starts. And I have one reason, and that's because at the end of the day, this is still a business, and it makes zero business sense to lock up Geno Atkins to potentially the highest defensive contract in NFL history before a season plays out, while he still has a year on his deal remaining. There are too many variables that could happen during the season, be it injury, different performance, to go ahead and ink him when they have him through this offseason. There is no reason unless that cap space is just eating a hole in their pockets, which you can kind of tell that it was with the Carlos Dunlap deal. There's a slight chance Geno plays better than he did last year. I'm not going to discredit him on that, and it's going to drive up his price even more, but that seems to be a smart risk at this point. Worst comes to worst, he gets hit with the franchise tag next offseason. He's still in Cincinnati. They can still work something out. But I can't see it getting done. I can't see them making that big of an investment before a season when so many different things could happen over the course of a season. That being said, we'll transition right into our next question, which is actually about Geno Atkins as well. And this one comes from Nick Farcorelli, and I apologize if I butchered that. I guarantee you I did. You can find him on Twitter at Mr. FICPSC. And he wants to know, why do we think Geno Atkins is always on the low end of the totem pole in terms of underrated when it comes to defensive linemen? I can answer that in one word. Ready? Cincinnati. Geno Atkins is playing in Pittsburgh. He's playing in New England. He's playing in Baltimore. Some big market city. He's the best defensive lineman in the league. That's really all there is to it. He was a mid-round pick for the Cincinnati Bengals. Wasn't high profile. No one in Cincinnati is high profile unless they're running their mouth like Chad Johnson, Ocho Cinco used to do. Geno Atkins is quiet. He goes right to work. He gets it done. He's the best in the NFL, and he plays in Cincinnati. That's why he's on the low end of the totem pole. Sean?
Yeah, Chris, you're absolutely right there, and that was a great answer. Cincinnati, it's a small market team, and like you said, you've got to kind of be a diva if you're going to get some recognition out of the Cincinnati Bengals, and these things are actually changing as we go on, which is nice. The Bengals are starting to get a little bit more credibility, but I think Geno Atkins has risen up the ranks, and he's highly regarded as the best interior defensive lineman in the NFL by many NFL pundits right now. It just took him a while to get there because of the fact that, he played for the Cincinnati Bengals, and that is the biggest thing. I mean, in fact, A.J. Green, by a lot of people, is still not even viewed as a top 5 wide receiver, and that's because he's a quiet guy and he plays for Cincinnati. So, you know, you have kind of that going on as far as being a Bengals player. It's something that you just have to kind of deal with, and the Bengals, they have the perfect players for that sort of mentality. They keep their mouths shut and they play hard and they win football games, and you know, it's a great time for the franchise right now. And I think the attitudes of the players right now, like guys like A.J. Green, Geno Atkins, they're really going to, I think, start to bring the Bengals out of obscurity, which is nice. So let's move on to our next question and flip this over to the offensive side of the ball. This comes from Ian Manor, and his Twitter handle is GoReds42093. And Ian asks, do you think that Tyler Eifert will overtake Jermaine Gresham as the go-to tight end this season? Well, we kind of touched on this in previous shows a little bit, Chris, and I think we've kind of come to a conclusion that, you know, Gresham's still going to be considered the number one guy in Cincinnati at the tight end position throughout the season. But I think that Eifert and Gresham will be on the field together so many times this season, as we really highly anticipate, a two tight end set kind of scheme happening in Cincinnati. And they're going to interchange in different packages that I think their snap counts are going to be very, very similar this year. However, you know, Gresham is still going to be above Eifert on the depth chart all season long. Next year, I have no idea what's going to happen yet. We got to watch this year play out first. But I mean, and as the go-to tight end, I mean, that might not necessarily be like the number one tight end on the depth chart speaking. That could all, you know, come down to how comfortable Andy Dalton is with Eifert and Gresham this year and how much he ends up trusting these guys in clutch situations, because they're both going to serve as big security blankets for him. And I think that's going to be a great thing to watch throughout training camp this year is how much Andy Dalton trusts these guys going forward. Chris, what's your take on the tight end situation?
No, he's not going to overtake Gresham this year, and I see the logic behind it, because if they're on the field at the same time, defenses are going to give respect to Gresham more so than they would potentially a rookie. But like you said, I think it's going to be kind of close to similar snap counts. I think if you see Eifert overtake anyone, you're just going to see him take away more targets from the potential number two receivers and gadget guys like Andrew Hawkins, because he's still a big body. He's another safety outlet for Andy Dalton as long as he can get to that read in his progression. But to me, he's not going to overtake anyone. Gresham leaves in a few years. He obviously overtakes him. But in terms of statistics, in terms of targets, in terms of just importance to the overall offense, Gresham is still the guy over Eifert for at least this year. Our next question is going to flip us back to the defense. It comes from Chris Nielsen. You can find him on Twitter at HYPOKRISIES, and he wants to know where we think the biggest improvement on the defense needs to come from outside of the strong safety position. And for me, my mind immediately jumps to the cornerback position. The linebackers are okay. We need to see Malaluga step it up. We need to see him actually playing to his strengths at a different position. We all know the defensive line is fine. Safety still has one of the better safeties in the NFL, and Reggie Nelson. For me, as cornerback, you have a solid veteran, Leon Hall. You have a guy like Terrence Newman who could contribute, but really across from Leon Hall, it's kind of a question mark with guys like Dre Kirkpatrick, Adam Jones, Brandon Ghee. How productive can Newman be at this age? To me, cornerback has to step up. We either need to see Kirkpatrick become, a stud and be able to hold his own, because he's going to be getting targeted a lot by opposing offenses. If they throw him to the wolves, we need to see if Adam Jones is even, going to be on the field after another scuffle with the law. You see if Brandon Ghee can stay healthy. This is a position over the past couple of years that has been paper thin at depth. 2013 is no exception, and we're going to have to see something from this position right away. Sean?
I'm going to kind of go off the beaten path with this one here, Chris, and I'm actually going to say the second-string defensive tackles. And here's my reasoning for this, is obviously the starters, we have no problems there. Obviously, Geno Atkins is the best defensive tackle in all of football. Doma Pepeko holds his own. And the Bengals, however, lost some key ingredients in there this past season, namely Pat Sims, who went as a free agent to the Oakland Raiders. And Pat Sims was probably the best run stuffer on the Cincinnati Bengals roster. And now we're relying on second-year players, Brandon Thompson and Devin Still, who really only had a handful of snaps in the very beginning of this regular season last year, and then because of the depth of rotation on that defensive line, really didn't see much action afterwards. So these guys are really inexperienced, and they're still learning, but they're going to be plugged in as staples in that defensive line rotation this year. So they're going to immediately see a vast amount of playing time. And the thing is that they need to contribute there. Still is going to be more of a pass rush sort. He's going to be spelling out Geno Atkins, and Thompson's going to be more of the run stuffer at nose tackle, where he will be rotating with Pecco. And these guys are really going to have to get the job done while they're in there, because if they're unable to, stop an interior running game, that's going to kind of blow up the entire defense. If a team's able to run on the Bengals, the game plan gets a lot different. So not only does that affect the defensive line and the pass rush, but it affects the way the linebackers need to play and the way the defensive secondary needs to play. So I think these guys need to buckle down in the middle of the defensive line when they're in to spell out the starters to keep that 2012 sixth-ranked defense as stout as it was. So let's go ahead and move on here to the offensive side of the ball. And we have a very interesting question here from Matt Johnson, who you can find on Twitter at 3forthewin. And Matt asks, how different would the Bengals offense be if they drafted Colin Kaepernick over Andy Dalton? And that's a very, very interesting question there, because obviously Dalton was drafted one pick before Kaepernick, so these guys kind of went back to back. Obviously, we saw what Colin Kaepernick was able to do last year, and we saw what Andy Dalton's been able to do over his first couple of seasons. And where it comes down to is really how each of these quarterbacks would mesh with their offensive coordinator. The reason that the Bengals took Andy Dalton is because he fits Jay Gruden's scheme perfectly. That hybrid West Coast system that the Bengals run is exactly what the quick release, and short to intermediate, passes of Andy Dalton is all about. Kaepernick is a little bit more of, obviously he's a dual threat guy, can make a lot of plays with his legs, but he's more of kind of a gunslinger sort. And he doesn't have as quick a release as Andy Dalton does. So if you're asking me, in the 49ers offensive system, and I mean, this in hindsight, obviously this is very easy to say, but in the 49ers system, they've built a system around Colin Kaepernick, and he's very successful out there doing that. But Kaepernick would not be as successful if he was plugged into the Bengals system, and the same goes with Andy Dalton. So it's really hard to say what the Bengals offense would look like with Kaepernick in there, but I really don't think they would be as successful as they have been with Andy Dalton under center. Chris, what's your take on that one?
Well, it's an interesting question, but I don't think it would be as drastically different as some would think. I think Colin Kaepernick's performance last year is fresh in a lot of minds, and so they would immediately jump to saying that the Bengals would be better had they selected him. You have to remember Kaepernick has a style of play that once the NFL has enough film on and actually has an offseason to adjust to, could very easily shut it down. We've seen it in the past. We saw Cam Newton's sophomore slump, things of that nature. I think we have yet to see if Kaepernick's offense is really sustainable over the course of a full season and more. So the jury's still out on that. That being said, I think Andy Dalton's an underrated athlete. He's better at moving through his progressions. He may not have a better arm. Both Kaepernick and Dalton would just kind of mad and spam at the A.J. Green either way. So I think it's kind of a toss-up. Very different offenses tailored to very two different distinct styles. I don't think that the Bengals would be any better or worse with Kaepernick under center, but I think there's a bigger chance of a cliff just falling off with Kaepernick under center, as we've seen in the past league trends. So, because to me, Kaepernick has yet to prove that he can beat defenses only with his arm, and that's been the failure of these kind of scattershot offenses in the past. So for me, right now, I don't think things would be very different. And that'll wrap up our mailbag segment. Guys, please go ahead and remember to give us a follow at Bengals Central on Twitter and shoot us your questions all week long, and you'll get to appear on the show with your favorite Bengals players.
Absolutely, man. And, also remember to check out our sponsor, Onnit.com. We have a very easy way to get you some great deals from the folks at Onnit. Simply type Onnit.com, that's ONNIT.com/football radio into your address bar, and you will receive 10% off your next purchase, courtesy of the folks at Onnit and us here at Bengals Central. Also, check out Big Frog T-shirts at bigfrog.com/Cincinnati. We're really excited to get these shirts. They look great. We can't wait to start to distribute them out to you guys. So we'd like to thank everyone for tuning in this week. Very special thank you goes out to Bengals cornerback Brandon Ghee and wide receiver Roundtree for joining us today. Show them some love. Give them some follows on Twitter. Brandon Ghee is at BGHEE, and Roundtree is at WRTreezy. That's TREEZY. As always, be sure to scour the ProFootballCentral.com network for all of the latest news for every NFL team. For Chris Rowling, I'm Sean O'Donnell. Hooday.
The following podcast is a part of the Pro Football Central Podcast Network. Check us out at ProFootballCentral.com.
Cincinnati's back in the orange and black. See the natty on the map, baby, tell me where you at. In the jungle, Hooday, bringing it back to the jungle. Every game day, yeah, the jungle's back. Got the natty pack in the orange and black. We're stacked to the track, so I'm back behind long work, chugging down cases. And a can brewed in 88. Hooday, Super Bowl, spirit of the icky shuffle. Feel it rumble through the king of the jungle. Thunderous roar, he will soar across the river to the Newport shore. The Fountain Square, the great American ballpark. Down at the banks above the riverfront graveyard. The Paul Brown Stadium, the Nat is awakened. They were making a statement to the rest of the nation. Cincinnati's back in the orange and black. See the natty on the map, baby, tell me where you at.